Hello, bonjour et merci beaucoup Marie-Chantal, Quasar, Kermit.
Hi, my name is James OCallaghan. I'm a composer and sound artist living in Montreal, originally from Vancouver. So I came to music quite late in my practice. I never did study an instrument, and I began composing in university. And I began writing electroacoustic music and gradually started to write for instruments as well. And now I do about half and half equally.
So yes, it's been a very wonderful opportunity to work in this past week and try different things, especially with mixed music involving instruments and electronics.
When working with mixed music, where the electronic part you have an immediate feedback. If you're in your studio or your home listening to the sounds that you're composing, you hear immediately how it sounds and you can adjust on the fly. Whereas writing instrumental music, there's a kind of delightful surprise when you begin to work with the musicians. So one, of course, has a sense of how things will sound based on one's experiences and so on. But when there's this sort of disconnect between the feedback that's immediate with the electronics and the sort of projected feedback, this is how I think this will sound in the future with the instrumental writing. It's crucial, I think, to be able to let those meet at some point in the compositional process. So in this work, the first clue to what I'm thinking about is in the title, and that title is In Specific Cities. And that's a little bit of a word play, in that when it's written there's a space, so it's inside of specific cities, but also if you say it quickly and there's no space, in specific cities, so cities that are not specific. So the conceptual concerns of the piece take the form of a question about whether urbanization, whether cities themselves produce sounds that are distinct and unique and immediately identifiable. Oh, I recognize that, that's from this particular city. Or whether they produce forces that make sounds the same all over the world. And so it's a question about globalization and sort of individual experiences in very communal spaces. And so the answer, I think, is both, but the piece tries to organize its structures around that discussion. So I have taken field recordings from all over the world and in urban centers and tried to highlight the types of sounds that are very general to different cities and also things that might be specific that call particular times and places around the world.
The saxophone is very much an instrument of urbanization and industrial revolution, I think, and the kind of mechanical qualities of the instrument relate very much to the kind of mechanical sounds that we might hear in a city. So I tried to forge those links in this piece with the field recordings that I'm using in the electronics and the kinds of electronic processing that I'm using on the instruments.
In general, when I compose, I'm quite conceptual. I begin by thinking of a particular idea. It might be something concerning perception, how we hear, or the configuration of listening to music in a particular space. And so I think a lot about the performance space and the performers, or the way that we experience music when I write. And often I'm concerned with integrating real-world sounds from the environment, and kind of trying to blur between how we listen musically to maybe historically non-musical sounds and vice versa. So trying to listen maybe environmentally as well to abstract musical sounds. So these preoccupations, thinking about concrete aspects of sound, where it's from, what produced it, and playing with that as well, trying to experiment with different ways of making that less or more clear in my composition is important throughout all of my work.
And finally, the specificity of the musicians and the interpretation of the music is something that's very important to me. Whenever an ensemble asks me to write a piece, I really am thinking about those four musicians in this case, or however many I'm involved with. So working with them and getting their personality and the specificity of their sound is really informing as I continue to work on the piece, how it evolves. And at the same time, I'm writing musical notation that could be interpreted by any number of saxophone quartets around the world, theoretically. So there's this same tension of specificity of sound and generalization of sound. So I'm interested in that tension between the sort of concrete and abstract aspects of sound.
So the electronics in this piece are triggered sound files that I've composed very meticulously, like an acousmatic composer in a way. And also there is live amplification, both with regular microphones and contact microphones, to really get the sort of interior mechanical sounds of the saxophones, the keys. And then there's some live processing of that sound, and that's really only two things. One is reverberation, and it's actually an impulse response taken from the space that the workshop is taking place in, the MMR at Kermit. So there's a kind of, I'm interested in this kind of aural redundancy of the space inside of a space, and also some dynamic transposition and equalization of the sound. So as they play these different noise-based techniques, there's the direct sound and also a transposed sound that's allowing to extend the sort of spectral possibilities of these techniques. So one of my goals in this piece was to try and, in a way, bring my instrumental writing closer to the way that I would write acousmatic music. So if I'm really trying to sculpt the sound spectrally when I manipulate it for use in a tape piece, I want to get as close to that kind of precision and manipulation as I can in a live setting, and I'm doing that more in this piece than I have before. Now we'll do a short improvisation together just to experiment with some of the different processing in the patch. So just to say briefly, the 4 saxophones have contact mics on the instrument to pick up really the mechanical sounds of the key clicks and other noise-based sounds that they're experimenting with in the piece and the improvisation. And so in the patch, I'm amplifying that sound in different ways, different mixing, and then really just 2 basic kinds of processing. Reverb, which is using an impulse response taken from this room, so there's a kind of redundancy that I'm interested in there. And also some live equalization and pitch shifting. So it's kind of basic materials, but it's a way of really shaping the spectral quality of the sound as they play, and it's a lot of fun. So. Wonderful, of course, to be able to work the entire week and spend so much time with these musicians who are so generous and really a lot of fun. So being able to work on something one day and then go home in the night and think about what happened and return the very next day with some other things to try has been a real luxury.